We've been talking about the quadratic formula, and I wrote it up there. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The part underneath the square root, we call that the discriminant. So the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. All you need to know is the discriminant to know what kind of answers you're going to get. So let me show you this. If the discriminant is a positive number, okay, so if you end up with a positive number under the square root, that means your solutions are going to be real numbers. You're going to have two real roots or two real solutions. And what this means about the graph is you also have two x-intercepts. Now, it may open up, it may open down, it doesn't really matter, but there's going to be two of them. We'll come back to this because there's a little more I want to tell you about that. All right, if b squared minus 4ac is 0, that means up at this part you would have the square root of 0, which would just be 0. So this plus or minus part would all disappear. So then you would just have negative b over 2a, which probably sounds familiar. So if b squared minus 4ac is 0, that means you only have one real root, and it's negative b over 2a. What this means is your parabola only hits the axis once, and it might be opening up or down, we don't know, but basically the vertex is sitting right there. Now, if your b squared minus 4ac is negative, so if the number under the square root is a negative number, that means you have imaginary solutions. So there are no real roots. But you do have the solutions are imaginary. What this means is your parabola doesn't touch the x-axis. Maybe it looks like this. Maybe it opens down and it's below the axis, something like this. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to tell you about this first situation, if b squared minus 4ac, if it is a perfect square, that means the equation can be factored. Okay, that means your roots are rational numbers. They're nice, neat numbers, and they can be factored. I often use this if I have a quadratic equation because factoring is always my first choice, and I always ask myself, can that be factored? And if I'm not sure, I'll just run the discriminant real quick and see. But that it can be factored, and so the solutions are rational numbers. So let me show you how this comes in handy. We want to determine the number and the type of each solution. I don't care what the solutions actually are. It didn't ask us to find that. We are just going to look at b squared minus 4ac. So in this problem, we have 8 squared minus 4 times 16 times 1. And that gives us 0. So that means we have one real root. Okay, one real solution. It's a real number. All right, let's check out this one. b squared minus 4ac. So b is negative 5, a is 2, and c is 6. We're just going to put that all in the calculator exactly the way we see it, and we get negative 23. So there are no real roots, but there are two imaginary. All right, last couple of questions. What value of b will cause us to have one real solution? So remember, we have one real solution, if you look back up at that table, when b squared minus 4ac is 0. So we're going to plug in what we know. We don't know b, but we do know that a is 2 and c is 18. So we get b squared minus, I need a calculator for that, 144. We're just going to finish solving this. I'm going to add 144 to both sides and take the square root. So if b is plus or minus 12, okay, so if I have plus or minus 12, that means that this quadratic just has one real solution. All right, the last one is what value b will cause this to have non-real solutions or imaginary solutions? Well, that happens when b squared minus 4ac is a negative number, so when it's less than 0. So let's plug in what we know. A is 5, c is 5. So we get b squared minus 100. Oops, sorry. I'm going to go ahead and add that to both sides. Okay, now we have to stop here. We can't take the square root of both sides because of the inequality sign. It just gets kind of weird. So we'll just kind of reason through it. Now, obviously 10 is going to be part of our answer. 10 is the biggest it could be. Now, if I plugged in 9, 9 squared would be less than 100, and so would 8 squared, and 7 squared, and 6 squared, and 0 squared. Basically anything between negative 10 and 10 would work. Okay, so if anything between negative 10 and 10 would give us a discriminant that's negative, which would mean two non-real solutions.